What is good, everyone? This is Tarod Rashawn, and you are listening to the TARODCAST podcast. And I have a wonderful show for all of you today. For all of our new listeners listening for the very first time, welcome. For all of you who have come back for another week, another dose of TARODCAST, welcome back. Now, as you already know, at TARODCAST, you can take everything we say with a grain of salt. We simply just want to add some flavor to your meal. So if we're doing that, then we're doing our job. I have a wonderful show prepared for you guys today, and it's on a subject that, of course, just like every subject we have on TARODCAST, is very near and dear to my heart, and it's one that has allowed me to understand my growth as a person, and hopefully it will allow you to have a chance to understand that same growth in yourself. So today's subject is the dark side has cookies. You heard that right. The dark side has cookies. This is TARODCAST. Let's get it. Welcome back to the TARODCAST. Today, it is Saturday, January the 18th. And before we get into anything about today's topic, if you're listening, I just want you to know that you can find and subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Spreaker, SoundCloud, CastBox, Podcast Addict, and iHeartRadio. We made it. We finally made it. So glad that we have so many avenues that we are able to get our content on so people can listen and enjoy it wherever they are and with whatever they listen to. So today's subject is the dark side has cookies. And when I think about this subject, first it brings to mind the understanding that we all have two sides of us, two sides that make up who we are. We have an ideal side of us that's shared with the world, and we also have a personal side that's exposed when either we're alone or with those who we find the closest in our company. Thinking about this, I also have come to understand that we possess a vast array of characteristics that may be opposite to who we are perceived to be. I think about oftentimes characters who they appear one way with a certain group of people or with a certain person. Sometimes like the villain who, when you first meet them, they seem like a pretty decent person, but as time goes on, you start to see them unravel in a way where their true side, their true intentions come out. And when I say this, I don't mean, and I don't want to approach this subject from the standpoint of people having a side of them that comes out that you don't expect as being bad people. It's just there are things that we as humans tend to hide until we get to a level of comfort with a person or in a specific situation where who we really are actually comes out. And the things that come out of us don't necessarily have to be bad things, but there are parts of ourselves that, because we want to put our best foot forward at all times, they don't have an opportunity to see the light of day because there's so much pressure on us to make the best impression on people. And we don't want to overload people with who we actually might be. And these could be our insecurities, our vulnerabilities, secrets, things that we think in private that oftentimes we don't want to put out into the public. And so that's really the direction I am coming from with this particular subject. So I don't want y'all to think that I'm talking specifically about people who are innately bad on the inside but have mastered the art of appearing good on the outside. That's just the example that came to my mind that was easiest to portray and communicate to give you all a clear picture of what I'm talking about. So when we think about the dark side of ourselves, the darker unseen side, what I have come to realize is that if that side of ourselves is kept repressed and suppressed, it will eventually overtake who we are on the outside. If we do that, we will not have the ability to hide behind our good side anymore. One of the things that I also learned, especially in my growth as a human being, my growth as a black man, is that religion and tradition play a part in encouraging us to hide our dark side. I know for me, this was especially the case because a lot of things I was always taught to pray about. A lot of people are told, especially in the religious sense, to pray these kinds of things away because it's more acceptable to present a side of yourself that doesn't give anyone else the idea to think of you any different than who you are when you present yourself to the world and to other people. And for me, I find that to be problematic because when we get used to presenting ourselves in a way that only the good part of ourselves is shown, we find that we put on ourselves this burden to always live up to that image. For me, case in point, being the quintessential Church of Christ Christian kid, as I was growing up and maturing, going through puberty, all of that stuff, the way I started to feel about women in particular was directing me towards discovering a more sexual side of myself. But I was always led to believe that thinking lustful thoughts would immediately cast me into hell because those thoughts are deemed impure. But I wasn't taught specifically that as a man, a growing young man, that the bodily changes that were happening, the hormonal changes that were happening, were preparing me for my own life as a sexual being as well. When you think about, or specifically when I think about sex being something that when you think about it and you're not ready for it or you haven't had it, it automatically translates into fornication. And if I'm at least thinking about fornicating with someone, then God doesn't like that. So if he doesn't like that, then I need to pray for forgiveness. But I realize that I can't stop myself from thinking these thoughts. I can't pray these thoughts away because as a human, I'm supposed to feel these things. It's what prepares me for the act of sex in and of itself. And for me, just realizing that was key, and understanding that I cannot deny myself my own humanity because this is exactly how I was created. I can't pray this away. I also think about people who are gay, people who have attractions to the same sex, people who feel as if they are one gender trapped in another gender's body, transgender people. I think about them and the fact that the whole conversion therapy thing exists. It really saddens me because we live in a society where we subscribe to an idea of being just binary, where If you're a man, you can only be attracted to women. If you're a woman, you can only be attracted to men. If you are born a man, you're supposed to be a man. If you're born a woman, you're supposed to be a woman. As complex as we are as people, I have grown to understand and believe that that is not always the case. Life and people are not always that simple. As much as we like to believe that we are that simple, and as easy as it is to believe that we're that simple, we're not. We're really not. I was watching Greenleaf. I actually finished that series. Really good show. And one of the things that really struck me was a character in that show by the name of Kevin, who was struggling with his sexual identity and being a part of a family that is the head of a huge religious movement in the town of Memphis, Tennessee. Being a part of a family and being married to one of the preacher's kids of that family, and even having a baby, you're sought to do all the things that is necessary to continuously present an image of Christian manhood. And watching him, I saw that, and honestly, I thought he was one of the more annoying characters because of stuff that he did throughout the series, but watching him struggle with it and also be in denial of his attraction to men, it was really telling. And I actually thought that particular piece of his story arc was well done, because a lot of people struggle with accepting their complicated identity because the people around them, they're not sure of how they will accept it. But sometimes pieces of that identity leak out, and when it continuously leaks out and the whole becomes bigger, at that point, it's either you accept it and live in your truth, or you continue to deny it until it completely overtakes who you are and you have to accept it. You're forced to accept it. And the part that I hated was being a part of a community that is intolerant to the complexities of people. If you want to look at it from the religious sense, if God makes no mistakes, then the fact that a person is created to feel and have attractions to someone of the same sex is not a mistake. It's just how they were created. If we're using that same logic, it's not necessarily a sin to be who you are. But a lot of people, and myself included, when I think about the fear that sin, the word itself and all that it contains, that it brings, it's enough to make someone try their hardest and their damnedest to suppress and just push down every piece of themselves that doesn't align with a certain belief system. And so this is only one particular example, because this side of oneself would be considered a dark side to those who believe that anything outside of what they know, what their tradition or what their religion or what their culture says is to be the light side. They consider that the darker side of a person. It has to be hidden because it's not the norm. It's not the status quo. It's not what's socially acceptable. And that is indeed unfair to the person. We live in a society that wants us to just be what society has deemed fit for you to be. And to deviate outside of that in any way is going against everything that has been established. But who is to say that what has currently been established is actually right? who's to say that that is actually correct? There are a lot of people who hold high positions, who engage in acts that are completely left field of who they really are when it comes to the people who see them and interact with them every day. I think about a Pam Grier movie, as a matter of fact, Foxy Brown, the movie that introduced me to Pam Grier. I wrote a song about this particular part of my life. And there's a scene in that movie where there is a high-ranking official who goes to a brothel, and he's in the community an upstanding older white man, but he goes to this brothel to be dominated by the women there. He goes to be made into nothing by the women there, to be controlled. This is his kink. and when you think about just even that word itself, it is something that you don't tell the public because it's so secretive. It's a part of you that if the public knew about it, they would shame you, they would disown you. But it's a part of you. And the sad part is that this man cannot live in his truth, so he has to live his truth in secret. Now, I am not someone who is appalled by kink. I am not someone who turns my nose or looks down at people who are involved in kink and just doing things outside of the sexual norm that gives them pleasure. For me, I'm all for it. Do what you do. If it gives you that excitement, if it gives you that feeling, then do it. Be proud of it. That's who you are. But society has effectively dropped the ban hammer on anything that could be deemed abnormal. And I feel that because of that, it is a robbery of who we are. If we have to continuously keep these things in the dark, then eventually those things that are kept in the dark will overtake us. And that's the key about realizing your dark side, the side of yourself that people may not know about, but you know about. And if they knew about it, the tables would turn. Actually, the tables would flip. Because how could you be this way? What possessed you to be this way? And that's not fair. To me, it's not fair. So how do we meet, understand, and embrace our dark side? That's what we're going to talk about here in just a few moments, because we're going to take our scheduled break. And when we come back, we're going to dive specifically into how we meet, understand, and embrace our dark side. Because if we don't do that, not only will we be living a lie, but we will unintentionally live an unhealthy life. This is TARODCAST. We're going to take our break, and we'll be right back. Yo, welcome to the commercial break. This is Tarod Rashan, your host of the TARODCAST podcast, and you already know what time it is. It's hydration time. Go get you some water. You already know I'm staying hydrated, and I am not about to have any of my listeners dying of thirst while listening to TARODCAST, because we have a lot to cover, and I'm very excited. For all of you who are listening and you are loving what you are hearing, thank you. To all of our Patreon supporters, Thank you. We know you love what we're doing, and we do not take that for granted. If you are listening and you would like to support us on our Patreon, go to www.patreon.com/TARODCAST. This link is also going to be in every single episode of our show notes. So if you forget what that link is by the time this commercial break is over, don't worry. Check the show notes. You'll see it right there. Now, on Patreon, this allows our supporters to support us with a monthly subscription, and we have 3 tiers of service. We have a $2 tier, a $3 tier, and also a $6 tier. We wanted to keep these subscription prices low because we understand you are working extremely hard for your money, and anything that you give towards the TARODCAST is highly appreciated. We thank you so much. And so if you'd like to support and learn about the different perks that each tier offers, go to www.patreon.com/TARODCAST to find out more. Also, if you want to support us in a non-financial way, we love that too. If your favorite podcast streaming service allows you to rate and review your podcast, leave us a 5-star review. Let us know what you love about the TARODCAST. We appreciate hearing everyone's feedback, and that's going to help us to rise in the ranks when it comes to podcasts that are out here in the world. So leave us a review, rate us 5 stars. We really appreciate that. Also, if you want to reach us directly, email us at TARODCAST@CRTN-T.com. That's TARODCAST@CRTN-T.com. Thank you very much for your time. Now let's get back to the program. Welcome back. This is the TARODCAST podcast, and again, I am your host, Tarod Rashad. Now, before we went on break, we were talking about how do we meet, understand, and embrace our dark side. Now, if you've been listening to TARODCAST in any capacity, one of our favorite words is introspection, and that is the key here. In order to embrace your dark side, you have to come to a healthy understanding of who you are at your darkest. So my questions to you, my listeners, are: at your darkest, what do you like? At your darkest, what could you do? At your darkest, what do you believe? How do you see the world? A way that I like to approach this is to think about people with porn addiction. Are they able to express their relationship with sex? Are they able to express how they feel about it, what they want, what they desire, what they're attracted to, what they gravitate to? And for those who feel as if they suffer with porn addiction, if they're in a relationship, do they have a receptive partner? I remember seeing a video not too long ago about a white couple who developed an entire program for people who suffer from porn addiction, stating that porn ruins lives and porn ruins relationships. And I have to humbly disagree, because as someone who looks at sex and sex work as entertainment when it's being viewed, to me it's not the case. I feel like you have to really understand who you are in order to realize that porn in and of itself is not something that ruins a relationship. It's not the actors and actresses who are coming into your home specifically to ruin your relationship. It's the fact that, to me, you do not have a healthy relationship with sex. You believe it to be one thing, but you're engaging in another. And when you engage in that separate thing, you're doing it in secret. And when you are caught doing it in secret, that is what ruins the relationship. Because the lack of communication, the lack of understanding between two partners who are in a relationship that is also involving sex. Sorry, y'all, there's a printer going off in the background. but that is what I have come to realize. And so when I look at this couple, they've gone on and done interviews, and they've spoken so badly about sex and sex workers ruining relationships, and that porn is an addiction. No. The disparity here is the way you think about sex and the way that you approach it is one way, but the way you really feel about sex is another. And you have yet to come to the realization that maybe you, being a sexual being, have not yet tapped into the things that you like. Because maybe you feel as if your partner would not be receptive to you being a freak. And that's what I get from that. That's what I realize from that. So I don't believe that there is such a thing as porn addiction. What I do believe is that there are people out here who have not gotten to a point where they are able to communicate what they truly like and who they truly are in the sexual realm, because all of this is entertainment. All of it is. You can be addicted to all kinds of entertainment. Another type of entertainment is our smartphones, social media. You can be addicted to that. You can post all of your business on there because you like the attention. But that can also ruin your relationships. But are there any coalitions or organizations out here that are making a move to ban social media? No, there's not. Because when you decide that social media takes up a space in your life and you allow that avenue to be how you express the darker parts of yourself, then that in and of itself can be compared to porn addiction. Because you are allowing it, what you are doing in secret and sometimes in public, to dictate the status of your relationship. I find this to go hand in hand in my brain. Because the scarlet thread of these two things is that you are not communicating with the person that you have chosen to be in a relationship with about the things, the desires, the thoughts, the general goings on of what's in your heart. You're allowing another avenue to express that for you instead of you doing it yourself. I also think about people who struggle with drug addiction. Are they able to engage with people who understand their mind? That is a huge question for me, because when I think about people who struggle with drug addiction, they want to escape the realities of life. My question is, why do they want to escape? See, it's not the drug itself that is to blame. It is the fact that the person who is engaging with the drug feels as if they need to escape from something. And they feel as if they don't have people around them who will understand, or at least take the time to be empathetic in understanding how their mind works. Because the mind is not a simple thing. The human mind is one of the most complex structures available to us as human beings. And on this planet, the human mind is responsible for everything that we have created thus far, both good and bad. So I believe it's fair to say that understanding one person's mind who may struggle with drug addiction is key in helping us to realize what it is that they really need. because the drug allows them to shut their mind off. It allows them to escape the general reality of their life. And that escapism, in and of itself, is what they want. But why do they want that? Getting to the roots of why they want that is what we really need to be focused on. There are bad people out here who make all kinds of things. They lace all kinds of drugs with substances that people don't know about. And unfortunately, people die from this. But are they dying because of the drug itself? Or is it because their mind, the way that their specific mind is formulated and created, the thoughts that they have, are they really wanting to escape those things? And if you look at it that way, you start to realize that people suffer in silence so much that they would rather take their own life or find a way to escape their own life in order to make their brain stop, in order to make their reality stop, just for a moment. Sometimes it's the only thing that makes them feel normal. As much as we don't want to admit that and actually see that in a person, sometimes it's the only thing that makes them feel normal. So for those of us who do not struggle with these things, it is imperative that we take time to really try our best to understand a person, to understand what it exactly is that they're going through. And once we reach that point, we will understand what that side of that person actually means. For us, we'll look at it as if it's a dark side. But when we come to understand that, we also understand the full person. Embracing your dark side, in my head, it doesn't mean always giving into it. Because there are parts of us that if we gave into those things, we'd be doing some crazy outrageous stuff. But knowing that at your darkest, this is who you'd be. This is what you do. We have to have a healthy relationship with understanding the darkest parts of us, or else we will find ourselves in this perpetual tug of war all the time. So in order to alleviate that pressure, we're going to talk about why your dark side is important in your journey towards being a full person. We're going to take another brief break, and when we come back, we're going to jump right into that. This is TARODCAST, and we'll see you on the other side. Go get some water. welcome back, everyone. I'm so glad you're still here. I hope you were able to go get rehydrated once again. We are on the latter half of the show, and we are going to go into why your dark side is important in your journey towards being a full person. So let's go ahead and jump into it. Now, when you think about why your dark side is important in your journey towards being a full person, you have to understand that this side of us, it harbors everything that we don't want people, regular people, to see. It's important that we find people who will not only accept that side of us, but also choose to see us as a whole person and not their expectation of us. When I was in church, there was one lesson that I heard about that stuck with me. And just to put it in a nutshell, I remember the preacher said, the distance between expectation and reality is disappointment. And so one of the things that I have learned, especially about my life, is that you cannot see people as expectations only. Because if you do that, at some point, you will be disappointed in that person when they fail to meet your expectations. That happened with me a lot. Realizing this, however, it gave me a chance to explore who I really am as a person when I had no expectations placed on me by other people. I can't tell you how freeing that was to be able to discover parts of myself outside of the expectations of other people. I got the opportunity to develop my own expectations and to really dive in to who I was and what I liked, what I wanted to give my time to, who I wanted to give my time to. And so in doing that and discovering that, I realized that I have completely abandoned the notion of shame. And I want to tell you, do not be ashamed of your dark side, because it is still you. Shame is what makes us feel guilty about being human. It is the act of people who, whether they are or are not doing it, they're pointing fingers and disowning you. They want to make you feel guilty about being who you are. They want you to feel like you are evil, and the only way to not be evil is to prove yourself worthy in their eyes. I think about the woman from Game of Thrones with the bell, walking Cersei down the street saying, "Shame, shame, shame." I feel like that was probably the most accurate depiction of shame that I have ever seen. Because people who have those expectations of you, when you disappoint them, this is how they want you to feel. Ashamed. You should be ashamed of yourself. But when you finally disassociate yourself with shame and become shameless, you can be who you are without any restrictions. Now, also understanding, and this is another word that we love here at TARODCAST, but understanding that vulnerability is the key towards becoming one with your dark side and becoming a whole person. Not everybody is designed to handle that. Not everybody can absorb who you are in all aspects, and that's fine. Some people are not built to handle that. But it is up to us to find people who are built to handle that, because you cannot wait until it overtakes you. You can't. Walking around this world without allies is a lonely, lonely experience. And for a time, that was my experience. But being able to meet people who took me as I am, and not only embraced the parts of me that I considered my dark side, but allowed me to live in that and to engage in that with them and to feel no judgment. That gave me a freedom that I swear I would never trade. It gave me the opportunity to understand myself in a way that has now brought forth the person that is talking to you right here, right now. There's no shame in my game. Ask me a question and I'll tell you no lies. Because there's no time for it. I feel as if for me, I am now walking in a truth that I've never walked in before. And because of that, I now can walk with my head high, and I can embrace both my light and my dark side. So in closing, I want you to understand that it is of the utmost importance that you take the time to realize who you are when no one else is looking. Because when you do, you will be able to unlock a part of yourself that has always been there, but has never received the attention that it needed. Have conversations with that side of yourself. Get to know that side of yourself, because it is always going to be there. But the moment that you and your dark side are able to shake hands, the world for you will change. There is no doubt in my mind that you being a whole person in your life will attract people who will want to engage with you and want to be a part of your life, and you will be able to have an energy that allows people to be their whole selves with you. That is amazing. It is an amazing feeling to be a component that creates a community of people that they're able to be who they are 24/7, 365, and in 2020's case, 366 days out the year. There is a power in that. There is truly a power in that. And when you realize that, you will be able to walk in that and embrace that and make that who you are. That is my journey, and that is who I am trying to be and who I am seeing myself become. So with that being said, thank you for listening. I really appreciate your time today, and I just want you to know that you have every right to be who you are. Again, I encourage you to be more introspective and vulnerable with yourselves and your dark side. Know who you are and love who you are. I can't thank you all enough for listening to TARODCAST. The dark side has cookies and they're warm. They're warm and they're chewy. They are. But I've been your host, Tarod Rashawn, and this has been another episode of TARODCAST. And I hope that with this episode, you really take time to make every effort to find and keep your peace. I love you, and I'll talk to you again soon.